Well, they're kicking things off here this week. It's a new month, it's a new year. I kind of always like it when we start with kind of just a little bit of a recap as we get a little bit of a reset for a new month, kind of a new thing to look forward to. Looking back at December, we talked a little bit about leading up to Christmas, getting through Christmas, is that, temperatures warmed up a little bit, things got milder, things also got drier for a lot of areas. Where did that put us now? And then as we move through this short-term forecast, kind of where are we heading? Are we looking for a little bit of a pattern break, or is it going to be a little bit of the same?
Well, the places that got mild, especially on Christmas. Christmas, by the way, was one of the mildest Christmases on record. So very warm across so much of the central U.S., all the way to the East Coast at times. But the problem is the pattern that we saw that got us there, all that mild air just pushing from the plains east. We're going to see that again in the near term. And then the map we've been looking at here, which is the total precipitation ranks by climate district from December 1 to January 4th. I don't see a whole lot of help in this either. Now, there are two storm systems to talk about, one at the end of this week and one on Saturday, that can possibly bring in some moisture from the Red River to the Arkansas to the Mississippi, Ohio, like that range, this spot down in here. But the extent of this drought, I'll be honest with you, I don't understand why we're not seeing more drought areas showing up on the drought monitor. Okay. When you've got a half a dozen climate reporting districts in the central part of the United States here, from Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, then go over to Arkansas, Mississippi, the western sides of Kentucky, Tennessee, southern Illinois, Missouri. But look at all those in there that have 132s and 133s. That's either the new driest or the second driest finish to any year on record. And it's been a problem. And then you have to think about this too. All that mild air you mentioned, we don't have much snow on the ground in Montana. There's only a corner of Montana that's snowy. And the biggest snows are still, around the Great Lakes. We've melted a lot of it. Now it's been good. It got into soil moisture, but overall, it's a picture right now where we're looking at too much drought area, in my opinion. The drought monitor ticked up 5% in the month of December. Now, not out west. California is completely drought free. Their reservoirs are at 125% of historical averages. And that means part of the West is just thriving in this pattern. But this central United States dryness is real. Some places there, we look back over the last 30 days, didn't find any precipitation. Like everywhere that you see a zero or that darkest shade of red is what I'm talking about. And if you want to look at the numbers compared to normal, parts of Arkansas to Mississippi are 4 to 5 inches behind average in the month of December. That's how big the deficits are in that region. So, it makes a lot of sense that the soil moisture map looks something like this, remembering that this is a soil moisture percentile map. So it's a rank. It's not an absolute number. It's a rank. But compared to December's and early January's, this whole region down here that includes the Mississippi, the Ohio, the Missouri, and then all of the smaller rivers that funnel into it farther to the south are just dry. The soil's very dry. Now, Great Lake effect snow, big time. Big snows in the Sierra Nevada. I'll show you those in a few minutes. Huge snows up north. Yep, they're there. But that snow up north needs to melt before it gets into the Mississippi River. And since, gosh, we can go back here, let's say, what was that? Early September. The Mississippi River has been below low stage, making one brief appearance on December 25th, Christmas Day. It jumped up above low stage. And you say, why? Well, it was so mild, all the water was melting in the snow and it got into the river. Now it's back down to about 3 feet below low stage. A year ago, it was about 12 feet above low stage. So we're thinking all of that through and just going, hey, all right, 1/3 of winter is over. Where are we? This is an interesting map. It shows the percent of normal snowfall when you look at all of it from the beginning of the year. Now, the heavy snows that have been in Iowa, parts of Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, the eastern Corn Belt, a lot of that's melted, but it's been above normal in snow overall. Look at the reason why. It's been because for most of December, there was a big ridge here. We had clippers that came right into that area. They just followed right here at the base of these blues. So that's why this corridor saw all that snow. Now, the later we got into December, we started to develop deep lows off the coast of California. That pushed the ridge into the center of the United States and pushed the drought deeper and deeper as we got through the last 10 days of the month. But what it did out west was tremendous flooding. I mean, you've probably seen all this stuff going on in California with the flooding, but all this you see in the mountains is snow. And that's why right now the water health of the West is great, especially in California. In fact, you want to see it? This is a before image of the Sierra Nevadas back on December 13th. This is an after. Look at all that snow that came into that area just recently. Now, what's interesting about this is even with all that snow, it's still been very mild out west. Since December 1st, we've been splitting the country west versus east on the cold versus or the warm versus cold. We've been able to find an area right in through here that's been able to tap into some cold air at times. It's what made for some pretty epic lake effect snow. But when you get flow that comes in like this, that's dry. You need it to come out of New Mexico and just run through the mid-south to cure these bigger drought problems. And instead, we're not only dry, but we're mild. Take a look at these temperatures. Here's today's highs. Now, Dawson, when we recorded back on what was that, maybe the 22nd, I said, I asked you about winter wheat, if it comes up with this. And some guys said, yeah, it will. We just have to worry about, oh, what did they say? I feel so ignorant with wheat, but something like if we get too much of this and the mild air sticks around to March and like the tillers, does that make sense, come out, then you could hit it with a cold spell in March. It only has to be sub-freezing and you'll kill it. And so I don't know, man. Look at these temperatures today, tomorrow. That's January 6th. There's the 7th. I mean, 57 in Des Moines. You got your shorts ready for tomorrow or Wednesday, Dawson? Then, we get into the weekend. Oh, there's a shot at cold air after this system, but it's not much. Sundays, high temperatures are back to average. I want to show you what this system looks like. I've been working on a new system here, Dawson. I'm pretty excited about it. But as we play it forward, all right, there's a little clipper. You see it right there going through. This is tomorrow into the Northeast. But watch New Mexico right here. There we go. That is Thursday getting into Friday. That's our first load that comes through. And then there's a second one that comes out on the backside. And with that one on Friday, I'll just point out that we're concerned about this area for the risk of severe storms on Friday. So we need to be aware of that as that front comes through. But as you can see, man, there's some snow on the backside of this. And there's going to be a shot at colder air. So we do have at least one system coming through. And since I mentioned snow, I'll show you a couple of static maps. Here's the European model forecast. This is the AI model. In fact, there should be an update of the AI model. No, not yet. It'll be out soon. But look at the difference where the snow is in the European versus the AI. And then here's the GFS. It's mainly snow out of southern Minnesota, northern Iowa into central Wisconsin, then hitting the UP hard, which by the way, between Christmas and New Year's, parts of the UP picked up 3 feet of snow with 70-mile-an-hour winds. It was crazy. I have a friend up there who witnessed all of it. And here's the blend of models, which just washes the whole thing out because there's still a lot of uncertainty. I would just tell you that if you're in this corridor, late this week, so I'm talking the end of this week and this weekend, you have your best chance at grabbing a little bit more snow. But as you saw in the temperatures, it's not going to last very long. It will melt. Precipitation wise, look at this though. If you are inside of kind of the line I just drew here, we are not bringing in much precipitation at all. In fact, the probability over the next 10 days of staying under 1/10 of an inch, it's 50 to 70% in the northern plains, 50 to 70% in the southern plains, very high in parts of the coastal Carolinas, southern Georgia, and Florida as well. So we've got this drought issue that is not getting cured by these next two systems. They're going to bring in some rain, but it's not going to cure the bigger problem. Now, what about after that? What about mid-January? Well, both models are putting a ridge here, flow over the top, and a trough east. Now, this trough east is going to be tricky because we're going to see if that could ever get far enough south to light up the East Coast with a big nor'easter. We don't know yet. But what I can tell you is that our longer range models, they're not buying it. They're drier in that whole area into week 2. And this is frustrating because if we would have talked last Thursday, well, New Year's Day, I would have told you that there's a good chance at bringing in good moisture all throughout the center United States. But the changeover in this pattern to bring this broader ridge in, nope, it's too much dry air coming in from this direction to really fix that problem. So that just leaves us with talking about temperatures. And take a look at this. This is North America for the next 5 days. Where's the cold air? It's in Alaska. It's not getting uncorked. As we go forward, you get shots of colder air, but they're not much to talk about. That's day 5 through 10. And we're all wondering if the second half of January erases this and starts to bring in that familiar track of cold air, which would come through this part of the country. But what I just drew over was a map that shows warmth at that time. So we're all questioning whether or not we can ever get back into that cold air and stay in that cold air going forward. I'll tell you where all the cold air is, Dawson. It's in Europe. Right now, I mean, all the way from Portugal and Spain through France over to Poland, Ukraine, Belarus, very, very cold. Scandinavia is very cold. And with time, it just slowly moves east over toward Russia. And I have not looked, but I'm just curious if this, next 10 to 12 days of really cold air has changed natural gas prices at all. But I wonder how long it's going to last. I already notice here Spain, Portugal, France warming up by the time we get out to mid-month. So a lot of transition in the pattern. Just in the United States, we're not bringing in the changes we need to undo some of the bigger structural problems with the flow to remove that drought in the southern plains.
So I guess the next question is though, can what the long range have in store, can that help us out a little bit? Because I mean, we've been talking about still the presence of the of La Nina. Is that influencing, are we going to stay a little bit drier going across the southern ag belt?
Yeah.
There's still some good chances that we've seen in previous forecasts for much of the Midwest, much of the Eastern Corn Belt. Kind of what are we expecting for that longer range again as we move throughout the winter?
Well, if you're in the Midwest, you're going to love this forecast if you're an ag. If you're not, you're going to hate it. Here's the first part. Polar vortex has regained its composure. That's what it looks like right now. We expect, though, by the time we get past the middle of the month, for it to weaken again. Now, when it weakens, that lets out cold air, brings in better chances for snow again. You can see it in the forecast, right? There's the lobe of the polar vortex by January 14th, and the models are going like this. That's the week 2. Watch week 3 and 4 and beyond. See it? It's just dropping that cold air. Sorry, it's just dropping this cold air back into this region. But what about here? If it's still mild and dry, that's a problem. So you brought this up. Let me show it to you. Here is the 30-day outlook on precipitation from, let's just take it all the way. I don't know. Let's go from the 15th of January to the 15th of February. Now, I don't see a strong signal to go back over wet here. I see it still drier in the southeast. I see drier conditions showing up in the west. But if I'm in the Midwest, I think we're going to kick off, according to the model, numerous chances of bringing in some moisture. And here's the thing. You mentioned La Nina. Our La Nina is there, but it's only there in kind of like a ghostly fashion. And I'll tell you why I say that. This is the way I like to look at La Nina. Do you see these warmer colors outlined here? Now, what this is this is a forecast of the trade winds right here for the next 45 days. If there was a strong La Nina, these winds would be screaming in that direction, or they'd be blue-green on that map. They're not. They've gone over to the oranges, which means the trade winds are weakening or even reversing, which is the end of La Nina. You go, again, I'm talking about this or the reds, whatever these are. And if you look, take a look at this. This is the newest forecast released this morning at 6 a.m. for the next 7 months, all the way out to June and early July of ENSO. And right now, if you call half a degree the cutoff, by May, we've got 90% of the ensemble members predicting El Nino conditions by, well, late spring. And here's what I want to know, man. This is what the new model forecast looks like. I told you you're going to love it if you're in the Midwest, but you're not going to like it if you're in the plains or the Southeast. February, March, April, drier, drier, very active in between. What about March, April, May? April, May, June. I mean, look at this. It's really trying to rip off really wet conditions here, keeping it drier back in the plains where we're growing all that wheat. And I just have big questions about why it's doing that. And if I keep going, this is May, June, July. Now you're going, all right, that doesn't look too bad, but we don't trust this. This is too far out. But we have to give it a nod and look at it. And I want to remind you, just to be very clear, last January, oh, I can probably show it to you. Let's go do this. You ready? Last January, let me see if I can find it here. There it is. This was the prediction for May, June, July last January. Okay. So you're like, is there some merit to this? Like, can it do okay? Because it was wet here. But watch what these models do, Dawson. If I show you the forecast from April for June, July, August, it went over bone dry. And we know that it rained. We know that it rained in there last summer. So that's why we just have to be very careful with these models. Sorry, let me go back and just show you the latest run again. And just to make it clear, it's still going after a pretty stormy and hot summer for 2026. Now, I'm going to give you some years, but I don't want anybody to do anything with these years, okay? Some analogs that are showing up for me are 2014, 2009, and 2018. Now, if you remember 14 and 9, it was almost like we didn't have summer. It was so cool. Those were very cool summers. Okay, I don't know if those are the strongest analogs, but they're showing up in the analog package, and so is 2018. I'm going to leave it at that. I'm not doing that to be a jerk. I'm just saying that seems to make sense right now. We just need to be watching it carefully going forward into this upcoming spring and summer. That's it.
Definitely something to watch here. Moving forward, wrapping things up, let's go down to South America. Preluded the last time we talked that, they're starting to get in the field of for the soybean harvest for that in Brazil, Mato Grosso specifically. What are they seeing down there? It seems like, still getting some decent conditions for crops that are still developing.
Yeah, I mean, this map shows the last 7 days of precipitation, and if I had to find the problem, I'd say it's in central Buenos Aires over toward Cordoba. I'm down here in Argentina, though. Now, these are like two of the I states of Argentina, but northern Argentina is wet. Most of Brazil's seen good rains. It's only been kind of this corner of Brazil that's not, but we tend to not focus a lot on that area when we're talking about corn and soybeans. Over the last 30 days, yeah, it's been drier there, but this dryness in the Cerrado, don't worry about it. They can have 50% of their rainfall and still do well. It's down here that I'm getting concerned about, if that's really a thing. I've been looking, there's been some dryness around Cordoba over toward central Buenos Aires, not the city, but the province. Overall, though, the forecast for the next 2 weeks, it's drier up here, including Mato Grosso. But you just mentioned it. If they're trying to get a crop to dry down and harvest, they're not going to complain about this. It's wetter into Paraguay and southern Brazil and Uruguay and northern Argentina. These are all areas that are still actively growing crops. It's like midsummer. They want the rain. So I can't look at this and say, hey, there's a problem in Brazil that's emerging that the markets are going to care about. I mean, do you see something I don't see with it?
No, I mean, didn't Buenos Aires, didn't they have, a pretty good size or a pretty good amount of moisture previously
Yeah, in
to where they
spring.
could maybe afford a little bit of this?
Yeah, they can. That's why I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you it's dry, but it's like in Illinois, if we go 2 weeks without rainfall, but we had good spring moisture, it's just not a story, and
Hmm.
they have good soil down there. So I don't know. That's my take on it.
Yeah. And then even moving out too, as they're wrapping up the soybean harvest in
Yeah.
Brazil, they're going to be planting that safrinha corn harvest or safrinha corn right after it to where, is there even going to be an issue at this point? You were talking earlier, maybe last month, that, if rain continues down there,
Yeah.
then there could be some delays. However, that's not so far going to be the case, at least here for the near term.
No. And I mean, here's what the new March, April, May forecast looks like. So, I mean, if you just took the model at its face value, it's not saying there's going to be a drought problem on those
Hmm.
on that safrinha crop. Now, again, I'll tell you, these are just models. They're very, very biased toward their initialization and the big climate drivers like La Nina. But I think if La Nina collapses fast, then we could see something different. But that's a whole lot of ifs, Dawson, and ifs don't get you anywhere when you're trying to predict the future.
Well, we're going to wrap it up for this week. Always appreciate the insights. Going to see kind of be excited to see what's going on here moving forward as we head further into 2026. But we're going to keep an eye on what's going on in the weather. So thank you again for this week, Eric.
Yeah, you bet. See you, Dawson.